Good evening, I'm Eve Rogers, and I was just going to give an update on my capstone project for the third quarter. My capstone project is looking at the effects of offering eighth graders high school credit in agriculture in the state of Georgia. Um, and so my first step in this project was reaching out to state staff, and they gave me a list of programs, just the middle school. So I had to then begin to figure out what high school those programs fed into. And so the original list that they fed me dwindled down to 33 programs in the state of Georgia offer this to eighth graders where they can get a high school credit in middle school in agriculture. Of the 33, I'm using into pathway assessments in agriculture, not so much because I think they're amazing. It's more of I needed a quantitative data for children finishing 3 courses and ending a pathway. And so of the 33, I did have responses from 3 that said that their county opts out of end of pathway assessments, which one I would like to know how they do that. I did not know as a 16-year agriculture teacher in Georgia that you could just say, I don't want to take those tests. And so that narrowed me down to 30 programs of collecting raw test data from these students, and then also relying on the ag teachers to communicate either with a middle school teacher or them having the information themselves of which ones of those students took agriculture, basic ag in 8th grade year. So that it's been kind of a whirlwind of collecting that. So I ended up with 8 programs that sent me data. With that 8 programs, that ended up being 14 ag teachers because, like in our system in Tiff County, there's 4 ag teachers at the high school. So I ended up with that many ag teachers to send me data. I have found that I thought that this would be like my county where the scores are just emailed to the ag teachers, like raw data scores and if the kid passed or not. And I found out that is not the case in all counties. And so as I continue this project, if I continue it into my specialist, I found out that I need to also not only track down the high school it feeds into and those ag teachers, but track down CTAE directors or testing coordinators and email them as well. Because sometimes the ag teacher said they just couldn't get me the data. I did, however, reach my goal in that when I first started this, I said I really would like 2 programs from North Georgia, 2 programs from Central Georgia, and 2 programs from South Georgia. So with just my goal in mind, I received data from 2 from Central, 2 from North, 2 from South, and a little more. So that was good. The only area I didn't hear from in the state of Georgia, and if you're in this area and can help me out, was Area 6. And I understand we had a hurricane. My husband was out most of October because he was in a county that got hit really hard. So they couldn't get the data for me because they weren't in school. So I'm sure they reached out to me, and if I continue this, I'm sure that they will send me EOPA testing data. But here's what I found real quickly is I compiled all the data. And so I looked at horticulture pathways, ag mechanics pathways, animal science pathways, and forestry and wildlife pathways. So in the horticulture pathways, I did find that the average score on an EOPA was a 76.77. And then traditional high school pathways, theirs was a 70.54. So a little bit of a difference. In fact, when I ran t-tests, there was enough of a statistical difference to then run effects, like how large of effect is it. And so in horticulture, it indicates there is significant difference, and it was a moderate effect. And so it kind of could imply that starting in 8th grade benefited these students. One ag teacher did say to me, though, am I looking at just kind of a connection more than, or a correlation, that these middle school teachers find the kids that are interested in ag in 8th grade, and so those are your ag kids, and then they're going into the high school. And that I think that plays a part in this research and Capstone project, that it is a benefit to have a high school course, that it is helping find those kids that already have the initial interest. In animal science, looking at my data here, in animal science, you saw again of like a mean average was 69 on the animal science EOPAs, and a 63 for kids that were traditional high school pathway completers. And once again, the t-test and the effects showed that there was statistical significance, and it was a little smaller in animal science than it was in horticulture, on one-tail and two-tailed t-test. Ag mechanics, your average EOPA score for an 8th grader starting out was 75.09, and then traditional kids that start a program in high school, their EOPA scores averaged about 70. That one was one that it showed that there was statistical significance. That's hard to say over and over again. But when you ran effect, like the t-test on it, that only one-tailed t-test showed that there was any like small effect. So ag mechanics, the scores were different, but it was not one of the strongest. The strongest, however, was forestry wildlife. And the scores for that, the average score, or the mean score for that was, I get to it, was a 59 in the state of Georgia. For those were for 8th graders trying to complete that forestry wildlife EOPA. And then for a traditional high school student, it was 49. So on average, 8th grade students starting the pathway scored higher than a traditional high school pathway completer. There was more variance in these tests, though the observation sample size was smaller. So once again, if you have a school system that has forestry wildlife and you have kids that are taking 8th grade, I would love that data. So that is what I'm finding so far. And now my next step is I did a survey just to see how the ag teachers feel about offering 8th grade ag, and you don't want to get them on a soapbox about how they feel about EOPAs. But I got to compile that data and put it into pretty graphs. But other than that, I'm wrapping it up. Thank you so much.